You are not in Kansas anymore. You are on Pandora, ladies and gentlemen. Respect that fact every second of every day. If there is a hell, you might want to go there for some R&R after a tour on Pandora. You've got to obey the rules. Pandora rules.
Welcome once again to Pandoras Box, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here with us this evening. We're going to start off the show with some Quickfire Facts. We haven't done them in a while. Obviously, we had my Uncle Dom, legend. Thanks for coming on, Uncle Dom, last week. And then I think a couple of weeks before that as well, we just haven't done any
we just got balls deep in the conversation.
Damn right.
Balls deep in the mysteries of the universe. So don't worry, everyone. That's the last bit of accent I'm going to do today, all right? But maybe. Or is it?
We cannot promise.
Can't promise anything. But yeah, so Quickfire Facts. Did you know that in 1719, prisoners in Paris were allowed to go free under the condition that they marry prostitutes and go with them to start a new life in Louisiana, United States? The newly married couples were chained together and taken to the port of embarkation. That's good work, isn't it? Embarkation. I don't know why I didn't say to embark. The port of embarkation.
That's a good deal, isn't it?
That's quite cool.
Do you reckon that's the origin story of Theo Von? Because he's from Louisiana,
Could
isn't he?
be.
I'm pretty sure he's from Louisiana, isn't he?
Louisiana.
Sounds about right.
Everyone comment,
Yeah.
you know, all those Theo Von fans, is Theo from Louisiana?
I think he is.
But I know that those Louisiana is one of the like few US states that have like sort of what's the way to put it? Like not necessarily French origins, but they, you know what I mean? There's a lot of like descendants of French people live in there. Like like I know that another one obviously is like New Orleans.
Oh,
There's a lot
okay.
of French sort of.
I didn't realise that.
Yeah,
French people, yeah.
New Orleans.
But I'm pretty
I know
sure
in
that's.
Canada,
I'm pretty
obviously,
sure like Theo Von is from Louisiana. So I imagine it'd be pretty funny if it turned out that his descendants were like a criminal and a prostitute. I wouldn't even
Sounds
be surprised.
about right. Yeah, sounds about right.
It sounds like a perfectly fitting origin story for Theo Von, doesn't it? And I mean that with the utmost love because Theo Von is just an absolute
What
legend.
a legend.
Yeah, absolutely love Theo Von.
Legend.
But yeah, another fact for you guys now. Apparently, it's very common for people that are born deaf, but then somehow gain the ability to hear. It's very common for them to expect that the sun will make a noise, and are often surprised to find that when they gain hearing, that the sun doesn't emit any noise.
Because it looks so powerful.
Do you know what? That does actually make sense.
And there's further.
Picture that.
The story goes deeper. Apparently, if it wasn't for the vacuum of space, and for the fact that the vacuum of space essentially nullifies sound, destroys sound waves, apparently the sun would emit a sound all across the world that at all times would sound like a jackhammer, outside your window just pounding into the ground.
Whoa.
Everywhere at all times, 24/7. Thus, obviously, it would be like horrible. Imagine that, like just deafening. But it's quite interesting because since sound travels slower than light, if the sun were to go out, it would take 8 minutes for the light to stop, but as much as 13 years for the sound to stop. So although obviously we wouldn't be able to exist, it's quite interesting to imagine just almost like if you could living on sort of like a planet where it was like in complete desolation, but just for 13 years you just be
resonating.
you would just be in pitch blackness, but with this jackhammer still just go.
Whoa.
And what was the reason for it for sound not traveling? Is because space is like a vacuum.
Yeah, it's a vacuum.
The waves can't
So I
vibrate
guess a
through
vacuum by definition. There's like nothing to travel. Obviously, like sound waves need, don't they? I always think it's really interesting, isn't it? That whole thing, like it says that like sound has to have something to pick up the vibration for even to be registered as sound. And there's that whole thing, isn't it? It's like if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around, does it actually make a noise? And that's almost quite like spinny for us to think of as humans, isn't it? Because it's quite tricky to get your head around that. Like you think if you were obviously in the forest, even if you were like 50 feet away and a massive tree just for whatever reason collapsed, it would make such like a sound. But then
it causes a vibration, doesn't it? When it hits, something hits, like matter on matter hits. it causes a vibration, and we pick that vibration up as sound. So
Yeah,
I think it always is happening. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I
but the
can't
whole
think
idea is that like obviously our eardrums then have to vibrate to pick up that sound.
Yeah.
And without that ability, it's essentially there's no sound. So without anything picking up that sound, does the sound even exist still?
I'd say the vibration that would cause the sound in your ears exists, but our perception of the sound doesn't exist.
It's an interesting one.
There.
It is an interesting one, isn't it? It is a very interesting
Quick
one.
question just on this topic.
Yeah.
What if you were looking at the sun, right? As you've said before, Drew, you do sometimes stare at the sun.
Oh yeah, a bit of sun gazing. Haven't done it in a while.
What noise do you think the sun would make if you were deaf?
Like the sound of a dying yak.
Yeah.
That's
just
the
like
sound. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like,
like powerful, just
like a massive, like almost like you think
sonic
of like
wave
a big
of wind.
Generator. The sonic wave of wind. That's Drew's latest album that's coming out soon, guys. The sonic wave of wind, Drew Armstrong.
Oh yeah.
I could picture like a quiet crackle. Like almost when you just drop something in a frying pan and you just get a little bit of a sizzle.
Yeah.
Like when Goku goes Super Saiyan.
Like
for the
a
first time,
laser.
there's like the odd little lightning crackle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like a ricocheting.
Yeah.
Off a room. Yeah. Interesting. It's time to give some respect to the little people.
All right.
Obviously, the most well-known, widely known deck of tarot cards is known as the Rider-Waite Tarot deck.
Oh yeah, good deck that is.
Yeah, also pretty interesting that obviously somebody with my surname, obviously there was like somebody Rider and somebody Waite obviously made that. So shout out to that whoever might be a distant relation of mine that had what was crucial in the implementation of that deck. But yeah, there was actually a woman that for some reason doesn't get any props for and she did all of the illustrations. So there's a woman behind all of the famous illustrations on every single card of the Rider-Waite Tarot deck. But she's not mentioned anywhere. She was an illustrator and writer who wrote Jamaican folklore in the
Jamaican folklore.
Beware of the Bigfoot.
Wagwan, it's the tower. Get ready for the tower to crumble.
Oh no, you got the tower again, man.
Oh, you two are the lovers.
Oh, you need to take a walk. Yeah, so sorry about that, anybody. But where was I? Yeah, she was an illustrator and writer and wrote Jamaican folklore in the patois language. I have to say, never even heard of the patois language before, so interesting to look into what exactly that is. But
sounds cool.
She founded a small press and was involved in the women's suffrage movement, among other things. She was almost lost to history, overshadowed by the men that were associated with the Rider-Waite Tarot deck. So I'm sorry that if on behalf of the Waite clan, I'm sorry, Pamela Coleman Smith, if any of my ancestors had anything to do with I don't know, just like not appreciating fully what you brought to the table.
I always find it interesting. The Thoth tarot is like Aleister Crowley tarot.
Thoth, isn't it?
Thoth.
Is it Thoth?
I always say Thoth, but it
you might be
Thoth.
right. I thought it was Thoth.
Thoth.
I just read it as Thoth.
Tomato.
Yours sounds like Thoth, but if Jonathan Ross was saying it.
Yeah, Thoth.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's because that's very like deeply ingrained in like the Egyptian like lineage of things, isn't it?
It definitely is Thoth then.
Yeah,
if it is to do with
cool.
Yeah. The god Thoth.
That's it. Yeah,
he was one of the Egyptian gods, Thoth.
Because Aleister Crowley went over to like to Egypt and was channeling all. He's got these books and stuff of him like channeling like the deities of like Egypt and stuff.
Mate, I find Aleister Crowley fascinating.
Yeah,
who is he?
I've got some really interesting books on
Oh, the little man. Have we ever got the little man up before?
I don't know.
Oh, find him on the computer, man.
I will.
You know what is it? That the head, and it was like there was this little being, right? That Aleister Crowley like set. I don't know the full story. You know it more.
Yes.
So it was like he just showed up, didn't he, or something?
He basically Aleister Crowley dedicated his life to learning all about
the supernatural.
Yeah, and like the occult and everything. And it's really interesting. He had a fascinating journey. He was also also apart from other things, he was also a writer. He was. I've got a book on. It's just Aleister Crowley horror stories. He also had a cottage in Cornwall which is still there to this day. It's out in the middle of nowhere, and you can go and visit it, and it's like a ruin, and there's nothing like stopping you from going there, if you know what I mean. There's no like, you know, it's not, I don't think it's like illegal to go there or anything. It's just like a ruin of a little old cottage, but apparently Aleister Crowley used to live there. And I actually really wanted to go there, like at the night time a couple of years ago with my missus and a couple of friends of mine. But my missus was like, no way, no, we're not doing that. And I was like, oh, and I really wanted to, but do you know what I mean? I didn't want to like force
the
them.
haunted house of
Yeah, because let's face it, right? It might sound like a funny thing to say, but like to some people, like terror is like debilitating. And I think
but for you, it's enlivening.
For me, it's a jolly old time. But like, I do respect the fact that, do you know what I mean? It's like if someone is like mentally susceptible to like terror or feelings of like woe, like going maybe to like the ruined abode
where someone used to write occult books
of potentially like of like the most famous occultist of all time, who like 100% like tried to contact demons, ancient deities, that Satan himself. And like apparently conjured weird beings into his like home, into his circle, in various places on the planet.
What was the name of that?
That does sound
for like a
interesting.
God-fearing man or a supernatural-fearing person, then obviously that is there might be some residual dark juju. I tell you what, next week actually, it would just made me think. Just to plug our next week's episode, we've got a really good guest coming next week. Somebody that we all have a personal connection to, but a woman called Claire Stone, we've known for a long time. Because it's our good friend and our brother, but literally in Bullwinkle's case, but to me and Drewster, our brother from another mother. But yeah, Josh Aist, his missus, Claire. So obviously we've known her for a long time. Josh and Claire have been going out for what, probably 11, 12 years.
Yeah,
now,
I was gonna say over 10 years.
2010, 2011. I reckon it was about then, wasn't it? Claire is a extremely well respected and like high ranked, so to speak, a general in the clairvoyant army. She's a very well respected clairvoyant, psychic, medium. Is that tarot card reader, all of that stuff. Very well respected, and it'll be really interesting. We're going to go basically absolutely balls deep into the paranormal, supernatural. I'm going to go really in depth asking Claire her story, like her personal story, in terms of, you know, like when she was a little kid, like when was the first time she remembered actually seeing something that was like maybe she realized wasn't of the norm, maybe that other people weren't picking up on. What was her like reaction to that? How did she process that? Did it actually ever scare her? Like blah 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 blah. We're gonna go all into that stuff. I'm gonna ask her what she thinks about cryptids, demons, ghosts, poltergeists, all that stuff. It's gonna be real fun for anybody that's interested in the supernatural and the paranormal. But I was just gonna say, we'll ask Claire next week what her thoughts are. Like, you know, I'd be interested to ask Claire, and I think I probably know what the answer would probably be.
Bet
like,
she's got some books on Alistair Crowley.
Well, I was going to say to her, like, you know, with me really wanting to go, when I was literally just like a few miles from his cottage, and I thought this is a great opportunity to go in the night and just have a poke about, you know,
get haunted,
poking. Yeah, like what would she think? Like, nah, don't do that, or would she say, like, you know, so many years have passed, you know, it's probably, you know, I don't know. It'd be interesting to ask her, but
I reckon she'd probably say don't do that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, she's probably. Yeah, I mean, let's face it. I mean,
I still feel stupid for taking the dreadlock, man.
Yeah,
the 2,000-year-old dreadlock
probably,
of the lady's grave in Peru.
There's just at some point something bad's gonna happen. Oh, actually, we said that. Actually, no, it probably already has, because you had many things have gone.
Yes.
Well, to be fair though, no, actually, you have had several areas of misfortune since
getting back from Peru.
So let's hope that the revenge has been carried out and it's all behind you now.
And I acknowledge that I say sorry.
Have you ever felt the presence of like a
Inca?
Yeah, like
Peruvian
deadlocked woman.
Nah.
Peruvian
maybe
dreadlock.
like pushing you on your bike a little bit. Or...
No, I got really blazed once and thought I turned into a snake when I was doing some singing. Like I thought like a snake's voice was coming out. That
seems like
me.
the sort of thing that I could imagine a South American ancient shamanistic woman would do.
Never thought about that. Yeah. So that happened.
Thulsa
which is a bit
Doom
strange.
style.
I felt like almost something was channeling through me as like a snake song.
Right.
Because let's face it, the South Americans were all about their sort of animal deities.
And in the jungle, the
snakes in South
America.
And
apparently in visions, like it's a lot of snakes and things like that. I've never experienced that, but
crazy. Yeah, you never know. And obviously, Obviously, we won't get too into it today. I know we've touched on it in the past, but obviously you lost a lot of money from cryptocurrency. You sold your place and moved into a place that
a moldy old little
which probably in hindsight you probably wouldn't have done. But hindsight is always 20/20, isn't it? Other little things, crashed your motorbike. So who knows, man. But it'd be interesting to ask Claire her opinions on Aleister Crowley. But he was an occultist. As Drew said, he travelled to Egypt and searched out the oldest Egyptian temples and scriptures and things like that to find.
I can't remember what the book is. It
knowledge.
Might be called the Book of Light or something.
Book of the Dead. There's the Book of the Dead
that Aleister Crowley wrote. That was his channeled messages of the Egyptian deities that he was meeting in these temples and these experiences and stuff.
I'd love to know what got him first intrigued within all this occultism,
because he's a very intellectual guy as well, isn't he? He was quite clever and stuff, wasn't he?
Well, he was a cult leader, so he had a cult, and he was like most cult leaders, he would regularly have orgies with beautiful women.
Fair shout.
And if you looked at him, he looks basically like Uncle Fester.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know what it is about those cult leaders and stuff, but let's face it, right? A lot of guys,
occult power.
A lot of guys, let's face it, really struggle, say, to pull a woman that they like. And I'm talking about reasonably good-looking guys, maybe even. But meanwhile, you have this Uncle Fester-looking dude who had a cult
knowledge is power
of women that worshipped him, that would all have group sex with him whenever he wanted. And it's how do you explain that level of sort of social control? How do you just condition people to do that? They were regular people living their day-to-day life. You meet them, next thing you know, they're part of these gorgeous women in your cult, and they're just at a moment's notice will strip off and engage in sort of.
Well, I'd like to know.
So
if anyone knows the answer to that one, get in contact with us.
Pandoras Box.
Get in contact.
Yeah. But Alice, I'm trying to remember the name of the little creature that he summoned one day.
Oh yeah, it was. What was it called?
Aleister Crowley.
Imp, or it was quite a one syllable.
I know what you mean. I remember it was something that sounds like another word. I know that sounds like a funny to say, but when we find out in a minute, you'll see what I mean.
There's the picture of it, and it's this weird looking triangle.
Are we on so that people can see?
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at it. This is Alistair. Look how much he looks like Uncle Fester. He looks more like Uncle Fester than Uncle Fester.
Yeah.
Doesn't he? He could literally play Uncle Fester from the Addams Family. But that's Aleister Crowley. Look at this mental picture of him. That's quite a famous one, isn't it?
Yeah, he looks,
satanic
he
fears.
Looks mental there.
Satanic fears over tours of Bullskin House. Maybe that's the place I wanted to look at. I don't know. But the beast demystified. Yeah, so a lot of people are obviously terrified of Aleister Crowley because for anybody that's religious or anything, he is a scary creature.
The confessions.
He was also anti-Semitic. I think he randomly hated the Jews.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, oh my God, look at this weird little bit. The Confessions of Aleister Crowley, and then a weird picture.
So did he have bad intentions, or was he just trying to learn knowledge of what the occult was?
I don't know. I don't know much.
I don't know if anybody has the answer to that. Look at that, the Aleister Crowley manual, and then it's Thelemic magic for modern times. And there's just a picture of Satan with big boobies. Look at that, Satan with boobies. Yeah, so for anybody that's listening on the radio, if you're wondering what the hell we're on about, if you watch us on YouTube, just type in Pandoras Box Podcast, or on Spotify, Pandoras Box Podcast. You can watch the video, because we do release the video for this, so you'll be we're getting up all of these pictures as we're talking about this, so you'll be able to see what we're on about. So if you want to participate in that and you are listening to the radio,
partake,
just do that so you can see what we're on about here. But I'm just going to put creature conjured or something like that, because then it will come up. Aleister Crowley, creature conjured, and it's a very famous picture. There it is.
Oh yeah,
there he is. There's the weird little fella. Lamb.
That's it.
Lamb. There we go. Lamb.
And it's it is a weird little alien man.
Yeah, I'll tell you guys a mental story though about Aleister Crowley in a minute, and this is proper next level, makes you think.
Because he drew that picture, didn't he?
And he drew
said
Lamb.
That's what.
So apparently he was doing mental.
Oh, look at that weird one, Lamb by Wendigo Moon on DeviantArt. Down
Where's this?
A little bit left. It looks like 2 pages. You that?
This?
Yeah, look how weird that picture looks. Like with all of like the symbolism and everything. Like,
yeah, so this must be like a more modern one that was
crazy.
done. Well, yeah, by Wendigo Moon. Yeah,
Ooh.
There's a lot of tentacles and stuff in occultism, isn't there?
Well, obviously, a lot of people will have heard of H.P. Lovecraft, and obviously he wrote the Cthulhu mythos, and it's all about Azathoth. And
did he make the Necronomicon?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. There's like rumors that the Necronomicon was based on an ancient Egyptian book as well, but nobody knows if that's sort of like something that's been sort of chucked around almost as like a conspiracy theory since H.P. Lovecraft. But there are people do say that actually Aleister Crowley might have found the real Necronomicon somewhere deep in Egypt.
Whoa.
Was that him in the river there?
Where, man?
He does look a bit like Lamb.
Like, is that like him when he was?
Yeah,
like,
it looks like it. Says look, face
crazy.
detail Aleister Crowley,
1902. In just
he's got like a weird stare, isn't he?
Got a bit of a Lucifer-like kind of face.
Well,
you think?
It was in contact with him apparently.
Yeah.
Goat.
The man.
Yeah, exactly.
The goat-like demon. Yeah, but Alice, like I can just get a mug with Lamb on it. That's hilarious, man. I might get you, Andrew.
He does look a bit like Lamb, don't you think? I mean, Lamb's got a bit of a bigger head, but maybe it's the boldness.
Well, one interesting thing that people say is Lamb, this little creature that he conjured, just for people that obviously, especially people that listen on the radio. So.
Can you remember the story of The Conjuring?
A little bit. I'll go into that in a minute, and I'll go into also apparently the story of Aleister Crowley and apparently some of the things he found out very later on in his life. And what's very interesting is he had a little bit of like a epiphany later on in life, and he reckoned that he found out some really, really deep knowledge about basically this like cosmic plan that had been put in place by evil forces since day one, and that like Christianity and everything like that, and pretty much all religion is like a con by actually like evil beings that are like basically through the power of worship are like strengthening them from like another dimension, and that when they get powerful enough they'll be able to break through the barrier.
Whoa.
And that basically they will take over the universe, and that like humanity will be enslaved and all this crazy stuff. But I'll go more to that in a minute. But one thing that's interesting about this Lamb creature that apparently he conjured was it looks quite a lot, and a lot of UFOlogists, would you say ufologists or ufologists? I think it's ufologists, yeah. Have made the comparison. This little creature Lamb that apparently Aleister Crowley conjured one day looks a lot, like what Drew says a Zeta Reticuli, or what most people that aren't quite so balls deep into aliens would just think of as like the
greys,
the classic grey, like big black eyes. Lamb doesn't have necessarily actually big eyes actually, but other than that, it's the same, that massive,
big head.
Massive dome-like head, like where like the brain casing seems like way bigger than the rest of the face. Like
they
quite like
have
a
really
pointy
big black
little
eyes as well.
They normally do, don't they? That's the only real difference between Lamb and like a classic grey.
It's really weird as well. Like earlier on when I was making a coffee that you're mentioning those, and we were talking about AI before we started the episode, and I had this thought of like AI merging with organic matter, and a lot of people say about those grey aliens is that they're completely emotionless, so they feel it feels very clinical and things like they've got no emotion. And I was thinking, imagine if they are like an AI race of beings. So like when AI is merged with
I've heard that
organic matter, and that's like and it made me think about that. Like,
and also because it makes sense to us now, and it's funny. I guess like people didn't theorize it so much in like the 70s and stuff like that because we didn't really conceive at the time. Like we conceived things like robots, but not necessarily like AI the way it is today. But a lot of nowadays it almost seems like common sense. We think, well, okay, well if there was like an advanced civilization, let's say we're like twice as advanced, maybe I don't know, 100 times more advanced, anywhere between twice and 100 times more advanced than us. Like, why would you send your own organic sort of creatures, especially knowing how long it takes to, even if you've found out this crazy way to travel, it's still like the universe is like so insanely vast. It's still going to take a long time probably to get anywhere. Unless you want to start going down like, traveling through wormholes and stuff, but that's like freaking crazy stuff. But so why would you send an organic being which has a finite existence, a given lifespan? you don't want to spend all your life in a little ship traveling the universe. What you would do is probably send some sort of AI creature that you could control from home, or you could program to do everything you wanted it to do. A bit like the same way we send probes out now. I was going to say,
yeah, that's essentially what we do now.
But manned almost by like an AI sort of creature, an AI bot that we've created that can carry out
AI
tasks.
Organobot.
Yes, an AI Organobot. Freaking trademark. That you can send to basically do your stuff for you, and that would almost make, as you said, make sense that maybe why they seem almost like a bit cold and robotic, like because maybe they are.
Something that would have the intelligence to be able to fix problems, but could also still be controlled by something else.
Yeah, so it could be something like that. Another thing that's really interesting, and it's going into actually this little clip I got up here. I got it up. Everyone on YouTube and Spotify will see this, because it's like a comparison between Lamb, that thing that Aleister Crowley summoned, and the classic Grey. But one of the things I've heard on several occasions is what it's basically saying here, and going on like in all ancient cultures, there's like myths and legends and talks of demons or different creatures. And it's basically saying, like, imagine if it turned out that what our ancient civilizations talked about as demons were actually aliens of some sort. And they're basically the same thing.
Yeah.
Or what if what we are seeing as aliens now, I'm not saying they're demons necessarily, but what if they are more interdimensional beings rather than coming necessarily from like a star in our solar system? In which case that is almost like, the difference between, say, that and what is described as like a demon, the difference is almost negligible. Do you know what I mean? Well, because the whole idea
is
is
like the intention behind, like, demon. I've got this negative connotation with it, and more like being is more.
I think the word demon in itself almost like invokes terror.
Yeah,
like if somebody said to you like a demon's going to come visit,
and it's weird because in Greek mythology as well, the daemon is more like the inspiration, like the deity that inspires you, the daemon, and it's like turning from demon to daemon, and like and kind of like with. You ever heard that expression? So so daemon is like a deity or
Damon Albarn from Blur.
Yeah, nice. Like that would inspire you and would have like really good intentions for you, and then the demon would try and drag you down, and like or it'd be like the opposite. So it's almost
is the daemon almost like in that? Is it almost like a bit like an angel?
Yeah, I suppose, or a muse.
Or
the idea of a muse, that's just like divine inspiration, like deities or beings that will just like are there to like inspire you to be better or to be more creative and everything like that.
I see.
But a demon's like supposed to like kind of drag you down into like
the pits of hell.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
But then and what I heard about it as well, it's almost like you have those internalized in yourself. So it's like, are you going to turn your inner demon into an inner daemon and like use like these fractured parts of yourself to inspire you or to make you like go into the hole of despair?
That reminds me of a couple of other things, like in general, they say, don't they, there's good and evil in all of us, but it's like, what path do you want to go to? Or the other analogy, you hear that there's like, sounds a bit cheesy, but it is a good analogy for us all to think about. They say there's two walls of insight.
So which will you feed?
Which one are you going to feed? It is very much like that, isn't it?
And it's crazy when you say about this interdimensionality of like things as well. Like it's like if you have a thought or a concept or a thing or a group thought of a thing, that actually can create something in the actual interdimensional reality. So thoughts have actual kind of matter, and the more so that whole feeding the good or the bad, you would actually be like creating something that would be like a demon, like an externalized energy of this like thought construct that is like that's like personified out there somewhere. Do you know what I mean? It's
that
like
idea goes hand in hand with what you were saying earlier about how Christianity, how I can't remember his name. But Aleister Crowley, how he was saying Christianity was just an idea that so people could almost conjure these beings that would eventually be able to break into the barrier of our
break
universe.
Through the barrier, and let's remember as well, it's like a fact nowadays. I think it's only been a fact as of quite recently, like recent years. But like all astrophysicists now agree. I'm pretty sure that pretty much all of them are in agreement. I know that Neil deGrasse Tyson definitely says that it's true. Is that it's like a fact now that like there are the multiverse is true.
Well,
that there are an infinite amount of universes, like parallel universes, and there almost could be like an infinite number of you, of each of us, with an infinite number of different outcomes and
There's
possibilities.
only one of me, baby.
There's only one of me, baby. I'm right here. I'm right here. Yeah, apart from Drew. Drew's like a little space.
Man, that would be like a superpower. You're the only person in the whole multiverse.
That's only on.
There's only you
on Earth 616.
Yeah,
That's in Marvel. That's what they call like that. You know, the Marvel. You know, because in Marvel, like comics and stuff, they have like the multiverse a lot.
Yeah,
it's like their universe is called Marvel 616. They call it or Earth 616, and then it's like there's all the different ones.
Yeah, I just can't. I can get on board that there could be different me's, but not me. Do you know what I mean? Like that whole thing of like the only thing.
Well, it wouldn't be exactly you.
No, that's it. But
you
that
might meet
in that is I see that as different.
You might meet one and it might be like a tramp with no legs. Yeah, you could meet yourself and it would be like the douchebag.
That would be a different experience.
And it could be like some douchebag version of you.
Yeah.
Or like some millionaire
Evil
version.
Drew.
Oh my god, it's evil Drew. Smite him down.
Like, yeah, they'd look like me, but they wouldn't be me.
No, obviously.
I find the idea of infinity a bit crazy in this kind of context, because when I've thought about this before, I think, right, if you're saying that every single different action spins off to another universe where it could have happened or has happened, right? Does that then mean that if my hand moved an atom to the right, is that now a new universe? And if so, essentially at that point there would be, you know,
well, they do say, don't they? So like, say if for some reason you got delayed going home today by like 5 minutes at the last second, and then you found out that like if you had left when you were originally intending to, that you would have been caused in like a major car pileup, and you could have been like disabled for the rest of your life or died. Well, then there is obviously absolutely no question that the fact that you at the last minute were delayed by a couple of minutes had insanely large ramifications on your life. So what if there's in a parallel dimension there could have been a you that was right up until that moment exactly the same, but when that wasn't delayed for some reason and then died or was crippled or.
And it's mad to think as well, like where people say that everything is connected, like everything is like, you know, just super connected, like something that you do could have the impact on the whole. Like there isn't actually really distance between, like when they split atoms by like 15 miles and they make the change to that atom and exactly the same thing happens to that one. So it is connected in some weird way that we don't understand. So like our little actions that we do could have ramifications and could have an effect in the multiverse, in the universe, far beyond what we know. But it's a hard concept because we feel so individuated and small compared to the whole.
Well, it's monkeys.
But could there be ramifications in your thoughts, in your actions that could go deep into the depths of like space and stuff? Do you know what I mean?
Well, I think positivity is obviously an extremely important thing. I think there's absolutely no doubt, and I think, you know, it's just common sense. Like if you almost like build up like positive momentum in your head, like just by being positive on a regular basis, you're building up that momentum and that freight train of positivity that's then going to just drive you. It
has a power.
And you're going to go through life as a positive force. The more you let those negative thoughts creep in, the more it's grinding that freight train to a halt and then potentially start then pushing it in the other direction. So what ideally you want to do is get that momentum build up so much, as I said, that it is like a freight train of positivity. So that, like, let's face it, we all have to experience negative things in our lives and we all have bad days, but they should be blips on the radar, not all consuming. But if you let yourself get into that negative headspace and then you start every slight or that you've ever experienced suddenly builds up this bitterness and resentment, and you feel that there's things that are unfair towards you, and you want to start, you know, pointing the finger and, you know, blah blah blah, I should have this but I haven't got it and I'm angry because of it, blah blah blah. You know, that's a bad path to go down. And ultimately it's self-destructive, because the main person that you'll hurt, like, you will hurt the people around you, and that's obviously awful as well, but the main person you'll hurt is yourself. You know, in the long run.
I find it really interesting to think of like the ripple effect that you do have on the world and people around you as well. Like, I'd love to see like certain actions that, because you only see your peripheral, like the what you do, but like something that you've done, and which is what's so amazing with like internet and people hearing conversations, and like people be listening to this that we've never even met before or anything. And, you know, the impact that you can have, like all over.
Somebody
but, like,
might go and become an Aleister Crowley specialist.
You know, like I would love to, I'd love to be able to somehow see like dots connected, like how far has our impact, like not just with this, I mean just in our lives in general, like affected something else in the world of some other person and stuff. It's like interesting. It's like something
one
we'll
thing
never
that
know.
you said to someone, and then you could watch in the future and see how what that
little seed
that
of like of something has affected someone else, and then that's happened, and it's like this like domino effect going out into the world.
I think that you should never underestimate like the impact you can have on other people. Yeah. And I think that's really important to remember in terms of both positivity and negativity.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So like look, if you are negative towards someone in any way, then that could really have an impact on them badly. And if you are like small acts of kindness could have a massively, even if it's just smile at somebody as you walk past them, complete stranger on the street, that might suddenly give this feeling of warmth in their heart. You know, it might not, but it might, you know?
I remember hearing about someone who was suicidal. And they were talking about how they were walking down to the bridge where they were, going to commit the act. And they said on the way, one person stopped them and like smiled at them and just had a conversation, and it completely stopped it.
There you
and
go.
They just
Did you
went
hear that
home.
bird then?
Yeah.
That was mad when you were talking about that, and this really loud bird just like started like.
Either it was an angel or it was a lamb.
Right,
Demon or demon?
That emphasised the point to me. That did.
Yeah, but it's that just shows the difference that you can make on someone's life just from a quick smile, and just from stopping someone and
even in yourself, like when because it's happened to me both ways. I love it when you get a smile from someone,
I do,
and it just feels so good.
So
but also, like it's happened to me when I've been in my car and I've say let someone go past, or someone gives me a dirty look, or
and
someone man, and it literally twinges, and then this hatred rises in my heart, and I just want to chop that person's head off, and I'm thinking, where'd that come from? This is just some random person, you don't know what their day is. Or I remember like I was in a car and we were going to look at this place in Bath at the time, and we were driving down these lanes. And literally, like I was just driving, and I saw this guy, and he was angrily like shouting at me, like as he was coming. And then he pulled into the side bit. I stopped and put the window down, and was almost a bit like, "What?" I'm really chilled, so like it didn't affect me till afterwards.
Right.
But like I was just like kind of smiling at him and like really not angry as well, just like, "What's up, man? Like what?" You know, he's like shouting at me and stuff and calling me the C word loads, but. Then it was and then he just spun off. But man, that like affected me for like the whole day afterwards, and I was like, why did I let him speak to me like that? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, but I was so
you
chilled.
did the right thing, though. I think.
Yeah, but then it made me think like what we said as well. And talking to your Dom and everything like last week and stuff about you never know what you're gonna be, what you're gonna come across. You know what I mean? So like it is. You've kind of got to be prepared for any situation, because that hatred can just be sprung upon you.
But talking about negativity, like that guy was obviously consumed by negativity. Like regardless of
it had a massive impact on me.
That could be from someone else's action as well.
Regardless of what it is that he thought, that made him think that how he was reacting was warranted. Regardless of what happened, like to have that kind of reaction is clearly so over the top. Like what is wrong with that bloke?
It's shocking.
Yeah, like. To be that angry and to be, effing in, swear, blinding and that, it's like, mate, what the hell? You know? There's one thing being a little bit annoyed and then being like, oh, actually, do you know what, mate? You know, I was probably overreacting a bit. I was a bit annoyed for a second, but like, sorry for like overreacting. Like, you know, like, but then just to keep it up and then to wheel spin off. Like, but surely afterwards, like, I don't understand, like, surely he must have felt like a little bit of a...
Yeah, it just made me think.
Bit of an idiot,
I really want to start carrying a kukri around in my car just in case.
Just smiling at him. It'd be interesting, like talking about the butterfly effect of people's actions. I'd be interested to know like what the actions that have happened to that person to make that him so
probably
angry.
He must have loads of negative stuff going on in his life.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't just fly off the handle. All the time. You know, we like. Don't get me wrong. We all get angry sometimes and that, but like. That level with just a complete stranger over like something small in like a car and that. Like, I think how you act in a car or how people act in a car is actually like a pretty good almost like test for your I don't know how to describe it, like whether you're like your wisdom,
your psyche,
or your your psyche, because it's a bit like what they say about keyboard warriors, isn't it? It's like
because you feel safe and secure.
You're in this little metal box, and it's easy to just be a bit like
You know
what I mean? And then like be a bit unpleasant or whatever, and you can just drive off, and you might never see that person again. But then I bet it'd be real funny. Like I bet how many people that would do stuff like that would, if they did suddenly just by chance then suddenly pass somebody on the street half an hour later, they would just be like feel really awkward.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, well, yeah, so you should feel awkward. But it's like for some reason, like in this really weird, like immature way, you just acted like a complete idiot, and now you're obviously embarrassed about the fact that you acted like that. You know, or what are you, or alternatively, what, you're going to keep up the facade and then act like it in person, which is like just as bad, but in a different way. It's like, what are you doing?
And I think when you get presented with something like that as well, it's good in you to be able to like, if you've got that going on in you as well, almost you'll react in the same way. You'll be like super angry. But if you can like,
you're almost like giving into it.
Yeah, if you can like stand your ground with your like positive feeling or vibe, then it's like it almost just like washes over you, and like you know what I mean, you won't react like it as well. And I think that's almost like breaking the cycle of it a bit, because if they're trying to do it and then you go crazy. I remember another time as well, I had a gig in Plymouth, and like I was just standing outside the gig. I think I was having a cigarette or a naughty cigarette outside the gig like there. And I was and I was just about to go on stage, and I was like super chilled, loving like the venue and everything, and just like really like feeling in a really good place. And there was these drunk guys walking up the road, and then like literally as they walked past, someone just went like, rah! And did that like in my face, like as he walked past me, but then carried on walking. But I remember I was so chilled that I didn't even flinch.
Good.
And do you know what I mean? And he was like right up in my face and did that.
He must have felt
and
so
then, like,
stupid.
Then, but like trying to make me flinch, but I was almost in this super zen state about getting ready to go on stage. And I didn't flinch, but then I was just like, what is going on with that? Like, why did you don't expect something like that to just like happen to you, like, you know?
No.
But it's almost like people see you really zen, but they're like the complete opposite. So they'll be like,
I got to break that zen.
I
got to wobble him.
Yeah.
I got to like wobble him, you know?
Yeah.
It's weird, isn't it, man?
So random.
Yeah.
Yeah. Strange.
Craziness.
I've got to say, I'm quite a chill driver. I don't think I ever really get road rage at all or anything. I'm just kind of listening to my music.
I make some mistakes sometimes, and then I go, "What an idiot!" Like, but that's more from.
I always try and let people out and things like that. So
I think if you're not rushing about,
I'm not a beeper.
Stuff like that doesn't happen.
Oh, no. I only ever like beep if I'm trying to make somebody aware of something. Like the other day, I was like driving and somebody was like reversing out of their driveway, and I could tell that they hadn't seen that I was coming. And I beat my horn, not to be like, "What are you doing?" But just to be like, "Look,
that's what
I'm here."
Before.
Because I was obviously concerned that they were just going to carry on reversing and just reverse into my car. I
do think it would annoy me in cities, to be fair. You know, when you see videos of people in cities, it's just constant beefing. I do think if I was in that kind of predicament, that would actually annoy me a little bit.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it does, because it just seems a bit unnecessarily aggressive and pushy, doesn't it? It's like, chill out, look, I'll pull out at my discretion, thank you. You know what I mean? Like,
city driving.
Another thing as well, people aren't quite. They don't on the whole, aren't as like thoughtful. So they're not as likely to like just be like flash you or let you out. You know.
Yeah.
Flash you, your boobies.
Get out here.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? But yeah, like going back to Aleister Crowley, fascinating story. At this stage, obviously, it's been a long time since he passed away, and now I don't know 100% if this is true. But I've looked into Aleister Crowley a lot, and I said he was into the occult a lot, researched pretty much all religions, including ancient Egyptian religions, as anything he could get his hands on. I can't remember if it was Lamb that explained this to him, or other deities, or if it wasn't, or I can't remember if it was like one specific incident, or it was lots of little things that led him to this conclusion. But apparently he found out that all religion, whether it's like old pagan religions, Hinduism, whatever, insert any religion, Christianity, whatever, was actually like all a con. And it was all these beings that managed to almost like break through into our realm, like had almost like minions, like lesser beings, but still creatures with amazing sort of abilities that were sort of sent through to try to convince humankind of these greater deities. So in like Christianity's case, I guess it would be like Jesus or something like that. And you know, every single religion has like certain characters that some, or like or what's the word I'm looking
Devil's
for?
masked in light.
Almost like vessels or something that was like the herald of that deity, whether it be like Jesus or pretty much Moses in Judaism. Everyone
Muhammad.
Yeah. Every sort of like pretty much religion has it. But I think that he said that they were like, it was this one creature that did it, and he was basically like this really powerful being, but he was like the servant of this other being that
Sounds like Lord of the Rings.
That sounds like Lovecraft, man.
Yeah, that was trying to break through from this other dimension. And he was basically
why if he's so powerful, just chill in your own dimension, man.
Yeah, but he was talking about it was almost like a plane of glass, and like eventually you'd almost be able to, once the glass is shattered, you can come through. But when that glass is not shattered, it's like bulletproof glass. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's near impossible to get through it. But through the idea that even like prayer and what religious people would see as like prayer or worship, that's almost like a spell. It's actually like some form of like occultism. And that you're feeding this being from another world, and that the more sort of like conjuring you're doing, and it's like through every religion on a planet that goes to like a church or a mosque or a whatever, or even just like some pagan doing some weird ceremony in the woods or in their garden late at night. It's all towards the same goal that this trickster god, essentially this little trickster being, has done to try and break this creature into and apparently literally the whole like the Bible is like a lie, and it's all a con and everything. And I thought and apparently towards the end of his life he had this weird epiphany, and apparently he stopped doing all of it, all of his practices. He stopped doing it when he actually became like very afraid, because apparently he thought it was this whole almost like this like thousands and thousands and thousands of years old conspiracy theory that was like global. It was like a global pandemic. And he stopped all of it and just spent his last few years sort of like in seclusion, just sort of almost like regretting and like wished he'd never even found out all the knowledge, because it was like haunting him to the day he died.
That's crazy.
And apparently like with the idea being that if this creature did break through, that like it was just going to almost like enslave the universe, like any sort of like creature would just be like bent to his will. It's
like that Doctor Strange thing when that creature's trying to come through.
Umamu.
Yeah, Umamu. Yeah, maybe that's based on that.
yeah. A lot of it is sort of like, well, you see it quite often, don't you? Like little ideas like recycled and stuff. Obviously Marvel takes this. I mean, obviously they got creatures like Thor and stuff, which is just Norse mythology. It's like all sorts.
That's what's interesting for me. Back for saying about Thor creating creating a deity or something, or giving it power. Like that Hamilton Salvo guy was talking about it, like Thor and stuff like that, and these deities, cool. Like he could call upon them in the ayahuasca ceremonies. What? Because they are a collective. They have a collective identity with humanity. So they have this power because people do believe in them, and when everything is just the spiritual realm, it's not physical, but it's still real in the way that it's life transmuting and into different shapes and stuff. So he could actually call these different energies.
So even if it isn't real, the idea of it is real.
The idea of it being real makes it real.
If you stop believing in it, it would cease to exist. But it doesn't mean it never existed.
It's like in
Merlin.
Yeah, in Merlin.
So we watched this really good, it's like 90s sort of like movie called Merlin, starring Sam Neill. It's got loads of good actors in it, actually, isn't it? Like, loads of good actors.
That axe bit, man.
Young Lena Headey. Yeah, the axe bit's legendary. It was very much a product of the 90s, but I still think it's like stands up to the test of time, even though there are some bits that like by modern standards are like, okay, the effects there are a bit shot, but it's like, it was made in like 1995.
Quaint.
So it's like, it's like 28 years old, or something like that. But in that, I don't want to, spoiler alert. In the end, the way they sort of like beat the antagonist of the movie is just, they don't have this grandiose battle with her or anything like that. They just turn their back on her and they just say, we don't believe in you anymore. And they just ignore her, and then she starts freaking out, and then she just sort of disappears. And it's like they basically ignore her and just turn their back on her and act like she's not even in the room, and then as a result she just sort of like just disappears. But it was like the whole idea that like at the time Christianity was creeping in the British Isles, set in the British Isles. It's all about Merlin, obviously, blah blah blah. And the Sword in the Stone and all that stuff, Lady of the Lake, great stuff if you like your fantasy. But the idea was that Christianity was sort of like creeping in at the time, and at the beginning of the movie it's probably like 50% of the population are pagan, and 50% are Christian. By the end, it's sort of like they're pretty much all turning Christian. But the idea is that, like 1,000 years before the movie, she was like even way more powerful. And then once Merlin realized that, it was just like, okay, all we need to do is just ignore her. Just ignore her and act like she's not there, and she will literally cease to exist. And the idea that like giving a name to something gives it power. The more you talk about something, it gives it power. The more you think about it, it gives it power. And then especially if you start doing some sort of ritual, you're doing rituals for this being, deity, whatever it is, you're giving it power. And it's making it more and more powerful. And that's an interesting concept, isn't it? That's a really interesting concept.
Yeah, and like the feelings, like having fear or these negative feelings, like are they like? And you think of these, stories of like negative entities, like ghosts, feeding on your fear, feeding on these negative energies. Are those negative feelings powering more into that? And then
it's like, if you talk,
being real,
Yeah, because there are some. I know it's a bit like in Harry Potter when they don't even say, they don't want to say Voldemort out loud, but it's a bit like, it's like or like in in Lord of the Rings when Gandalf talks in the Black Speech of Mordor in Rivendell, and then Elrond's like, never before has the Black Speech past these gates, or whatever he says, you know what I mean? And like for a moment, like it all goes dark and everything, and it's like the idea that I lost my train of thought a little bit there. Just by conjuring this, that you'll give it. You are giving power to it. Like if you're in a place where apparently it's haunted by like a spirit or demonic possession has taken place, and if you like talk about it out loud, is that leaving yourself? Is that like almost like opening a door within yourself for then to be bringing aboard this negative stuff? So it's like the best thing probably to do in that situation is just to ignore it, act like nothing ever happened, and then you'll probably be fine. But I guess like the idea is like, is it all nonsense, or is it just like, is the whole idea of supernatural beings that, is it just nonsense, or is it just that they're not given any power in modern society, and maybe in past societies, obviously where people were more God-fearing, were more scared of monsters, ghosts, demons, and stuff like that, they were almost like, in a way, without realizing it, they were giving these things power
over themselves.
They were so afraid of it all the time, and they were almost like talking about it and writing scriptures about it and books and doing these rituals to try and like keep them at bay. But maybe they were accidentally actually giving them power. And we have to take a break a minute.
Pandora's box is about to open wide.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. That was Siren Song by Jerry Cantrell. Before that, we had The Sun Goes Down by Thin Lizzy. In the first hour, we were talking loads about Aleister Crowley, the occult, the idea that
demons.
And the idea that just by sort of like thinking about things and saying things out loud, you could be giving it power. We were also talking about the multiverse, the fact that now astrophysicists pretty much think it's a fact that there is basically an unlimited amount of parallel dimensions, and sort of like trying to get our little monkey brains around.
Brain to a parallel dimension.
Yeah, like what does that mean? We also sort of touched, as I said,
a big episode.
Yeah, not just on Aleister Crowley and the fact that he was an occultist, but also like some of the things that he thinks he found out during his life. Blah blah blah. But just during those last couple of songs, we were talking about got into a little conversation, a bit more of like a moral and ethical conversation, and we were talking about how basically, the dangers of being an enablist and an enablism, and obviously for anybody that doesn't know exactly what that means, is the idea that by not confronting something bad that's going on around you, or something, or not challenging something bad that's happening in society, you are, as a result, being an enablist, and what that's doing is sending signals that type of behavior is okay. But if it's not okay and it's damaging behavior, whether it's on a societal level, on a big level scale, or whether it's on a small scale, maybe it's like your neighborhood or even just a family unit, by not challenging it and allowing it to happen, you're encouraging the behavior. You're sending sort of signals that, okay, well, if you're not challenging it, it's okay, and then it's more likely to happen again, or maybe it's likely to spread then to other households, or whatever it may be. Whether we're talking obviously about like things like abuse, whatever that may be, in the many forms that they come in, things like that. So although it's, I think we can all pretty much safely say, I know that I can, and I know definitely that you can as well, Drew, and I'm pretty sure that you would say the same thing, Bullwinkle. It's like, it's not enjoyable to confront somebody, especially about something that is a very hot and emotionally charged subject, something that, regardless of what it is. And I think that most people, unless you're like a full-blown psychopath, I think that pretty much everyone would agree with that. I just think that some people are more willing to take that bold step to do something that's uncomfortable.
Yeah, man, and it's something that's coming up for me a lot in like life, say like with working out and things like that, like beginning to try and be more comfortable with uncomfortableness. You know what I mean?
No, and that's one thing that's
seek discomfort.
It's a saying that is sort of floated around training circles and workout circles. It's like, you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah, and that is another part of it, like with conflict and confrontation, because that's something that can be very uncomfortable, especially if you're not used to like putting yourself in that situation. But by not doing that, you are enabling something to happen if you don't confront it, and it's within your periphery, it's within your space.
And I think there's many reasons why we don't like doing it as human beings, but I think, apart from anything else, I think maybe at the time it feels a little bit negative, even though you ultimately know that you're doing actually something that's positive. But let's face it comes with risks. If you confront somebody about something, whether it's could be work related, could be in your relationship, could be something to do with your family or your friends or your a friend of a friend, whatever. Something unjust that you feel is going on or something that needs to be addressed. It comes with risks. You never know how that person is going to react, how volatile they're going to be. Are they going to go super on are they going to rationalize what you're saying to them and be able to take in and actually understand? Are they just by default going to go on the defensive and then maybe as a result even become aggressive? It comes with risks, and as a result, obviously there's a certain level of trepidation like with stuff like that. It is potentially risky. You're potentially putting yourself in harm's way, especially if you're dealing with somebody, as I said, maybe on a that's a potentially like abusive situation. We were talking say without getting too much into it, like a situation we know of with an abusive fella that's been completely out of order in his home life, essentially. We'll leave it at that. But essentially, we were just talking about our thoughts towards this guy, and almost like the dangers of then, if we saw him, even just sort of acting really friendly towards him with knowing the things that we know. That's almost like in itself enabling it. You need to show somebody like, look, this is messed up behavior, and I'm not going to associate with somebody like this. As a man, as a partner, as a father, I could go on. I am not going to associate with somebody like you. Okay, because I'm sending out a signal to the world that I almost like that I think that's okay. Yeah,
because especially within like peers and stuff, and like and people of like the same orientation, it's like that is your kind of peer group and everything, and if everyone's getting on and knowing something like that is happening, that is definitely enabling it. That's like you got to call it out, like as a someone that doesn't agree with something like that, to allow it not to happen. Because I just think for so long it's happened. I watched this crazy movie called like Mockingbird. Have you ever seen it? Like,
I think I've heard of it.
It's brutal, man.
It's
I don't know who the actors are, but it's a very, very, very brutal movie about when the English first went over to Australia and like colonized Australia.
Aborigines.
And the Aborigines and all that kind of stuff, but also a lot of like Irish and like people that were from prison and that would go over there as well, and they'd almost be sent over there to like work.
It was prisoners essentially.
But
Criminals
like
from the UK.
some of the people in like privileged positions in the army and stuff, that what they would be doing, like, and this woman and that and her baby, and I won't go into it because it's brutal. But like almost capturing that brutality, like so like you're like whoa, like stuff like that happens, and just how all like. Everyone was just drinking and just like it was nothing to them. It's like nothing was checked, and it almost and it's a pure example of like enabling that behavior, But if it's like if there's someone else in your peer group that says like, no, that's not on, like what are you doing? Like stop that. Almost like well, I shouldn't be doing that then. Do you know what I mean? It sends this different signal, and I think that's super important, even on minute levels, just with people you're around. Like, don't enable things. Like, if you see anything a bit out of order.
I think a big thing when trying to assess the risks, like you were saying earlier, is almost assessing the risks of if you were to enable that. Like, if you were to enable that behavior, you need to consider, what effects that can have to other people. Exactly, and I feel like I don't really know if there's ever a situation where you can assess that and think, you know, do the risks outweigh the ramification kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think, you know,
I suppose there's.
I think there's going to be a limit, and I think that's obviously going to change slightly depending on the individual of what in your mind your limit is. But I also think there are sort of like widely regarded as like universal limits. I think once it gets to the stage, you know, if you're in a relationship and you're like beating your partner, or if you're being abusive to your kids, that's universally condemned. Yeah, and so it should be. You know. Or at least I think it's pretty much universally condemned. I can't really think of many examples of people that would try and defend that. You know, but even like little things. I mean, I can't think of specific examples, but I can think of times maybe when I was like a teenager. You know, you're walking with a big group of your friends, like lads, like whether it be around town or something, and you always might have that one mate that's like, you know, maybe giving it a little bit too much large, and might maybe say like a slightly inappropriate comment or something like that as you're like walking past somebody. But then it's your job to be like, shut up, mate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and say it loud enough that the person heard them. Heard you. Say it loud enough that the person, so it's showing like, okay, I'm safe now because our mates kept him in check. Rather than this big intimidating group that's like a threat to me, and I'm like, well, you know, people shouldn't have to walk with their freaking head buried in the ground, like walking past a group of lads because they're like scared. You know what I mean? Or like what the guys are going to say or potentially do. You should, you know, just be able to go about your business. You know? So it's saying it's important in situations like that. Yeah, keep people in check. But I can definitely think of times, you know, nothing like major, obviously. So I've never associated with people that are like bad people, but you know, you've always got, I said, that mate that maybe just at the time, maybe they just weren't quite as wise or a bit more cheeky than some of your other mates, and just maybe they thought they were being harmless, but need to realise that, yeah, look, at the end of the day, if somebody is walking towards you and you're walking past and you're a big group of lads, if you say something, then that's that's just not, it's just not very nice, really, is it? No. It's just not very nice, really, is it? You know?
Yes, chivalrous, honourable, and righteous in your heart. Walk with those integrities and those intentions, and all will be well. All will be well, my friend.
That is right.
All will be well. Should we have some more quickfire facts?
Yeah.
Quickfire facts.
Facts. Did you know that there are whales alive today that were born before Moby Dick was written? There are some bowhead whales. Yeah, there are some bowhead whales in the waters off Alaska today that are over 200 years old.
That's mad, man. Damn. Do you reckon they experience time in a different way? Like if your lifespan is so large, would like, they say, don't they, that time is relative.
So like the longer your experience, it's I think we spoke about it recently, didn't we? And we attributed it to Lord of the Rings, where the elves almost experience time in a different way, because it is 1,000 years for them is what 10 years to someone else.
I think it was the episode when you were in Costa Rica, Drew. When you were still in Costa Rica, do you remember in that Rings of Power? Wasn't really a very good show in my opinion, but either way, you know, like there's that bit where the dwarf gets really upset with
because he hadn't seen him for like 15 years or something.
It was like 20 years or something like that. And to the dwarf, like dwarves, I think the average life expectancy of a dwarf in Lord of the Rings is like 250 years, but still, like the fact that Elrond hadn't visited him in like 20 years really upset him, and it was like real personal to him, like a personal slight. But to Elrond, he almost like didn't understand it, because like, the whole thing, obviously, like elves are immortal, so they could theoretically, they're not invulnerable, but they're immortal. So theoretically, as long as they're not killed, they could live for infinity.
Keep on living, baby.
There's just thousands and thousands, and there's lots of characters in like elves in Lord of the Rings that are like, I think, I'm trying to think, by the time of like the Lord of the Rings, I think Galadriel was like at least 4,000 years old, like the movies.
One of the older ones, isn't she?
Yeah, she's definitely one of the oldest elves. I don't know if she is the oldest elf, but she's one of them, if not the oldest. Yeah. But like to what was his name? Durin. To Durin, the dwarf, he was like really upset, but Elrond almost had to like put himself in his shoes, but like, oh yeah, damn, because I guess 20 years to like somebody that's like immortal and has already been alive for like 2,000 years or something. That's like probably
feels like a month.
Yeah, or maybe even less.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? It might even seem like less. Do you know what I mean? Because if your lifespan is literally infinite, like potentially infinite, So that is interesting, isn't it?
It's funny in the same way that stress can make time change. I always feel if you're under like stress of you need to get a lot of stuff done, time will pass so much quicker than if you're just relaxed. If you're just waiting your time out, time passes so much slower, and it is that thing of well, I suppose that is what they almost mean at points by time is relative, is that it's relative to, you know, the mental state that you're in.
It definitely stretches
of how quick
depending on the situation.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and even like, you know, when split moment things happen, but time seems to slow down. Like when we were working out yesterday, and like and that thing that happened with Nikki C with like the, you know, and it was a really big dumbbell. Like almost that whole thing,
Time
it was
stands
over
still
so
for a
quickly, but it almost stood still in that moment because you know, like something's going down, like, you know, and then just that, and then you think about it after, like everything that happened, and like what you did or what you didn't do, you know what I mean, and like and stuff, and it's like whoa, that whole moment just like slowed down for a second, like crazy.
Yeah, basically we had a real big workout yesterday, and our mate Nicky C accidentally dropped like a really heavy dumbbell on his chest, and obviously for a split second I was really worried that he was going to be hurt. Luckily he wasn't. I think the only thing he was hurt was his pride a little bit, you know, and there's certainly no shame in ever like failing a lift or anything in the gym, because all it shows is that you're pushing yourself to the limit, which is absolutely nothing but commendable. You need to push yourself to the limit to see where your limits are. But obviously there was that moment where you're like worried, and I know what you mean. It's almost like time stands still.
Yeah,
you start seeing that something's going wrong, and then you're like and then it's like okay, we're okay,
and it happens so quickly, but it also happens so slowly in the moment. It's weird. Like,
it's funny,
exactly.
Isn't it? Time stands still. But yeah, that was a great workout anyway, wasn't it, man?
Yeah, really epic.
Let's talk the people through what we did. So from your point of view, what did we do, man? And what were your sort of insights of the workout?
Oh, well, it started well.
It started
with a few easy stretches.
Oh,
you know,
yes,
a few squats, sitting down in the squat
Motion
position.
is lotion, baby.
You know, just getting things stretched out, and with the intriguing feeling that this workout's going to be a good one. You know, and like, and you know,
I like how this is almost like this is like reading somebody's like diary.
Some push and some pulls. There was some trepidation from me being in the gym and actually working out with someone I hold in great esteem for their gym achievements of as of late. I know Nicky C's been going into the gym quite a lot more than I have.
Man. He's like a whippet.
Yeah, man, and smashing through it. But we were doing the old push pull, so we started off with some inverse pull downs, lat pull downs, wasn't it?
Like underhanded lat pull downs, or like supinated, you could say, if you want to be fancy. Yeah, basically underhanded pull down, so pulling it down like this, with like an underhand grip.
Yeah, that was it. Going supersetting those with bench press as well.
Yeah, flat like, dumbbell bench.
Yeah, dumbbell bench. So that was really 5 cool.
5 sets each.
Yeah. Going through that felt like really good. Felt like getting into it more as we were going through it. And then what were those things we did after, like the overhead?
Yeah, so did 5 sets each of that. So push pull. So I'm a big believer in sort of like working out the chest and the back at the same time. You know, because at the end of the day, as I've said to Drew and Nicky C, like when you're doing a chest movement or like a pushing movement, your back is working as a stabilizer, and then the opposite is true when you're doing a back movement. You're sort of like your chest is working as a stabilizer. And it's, if you think about it, really, it's like they are their own unique muscles, but they're also, it's almost like two sides of the same coin, isn't it? Your chest and your back. So it is beneficial to work them both. And also little things like, I always emphasize that contraction on the back. That's almost like the position you want to be in. That's like the ideal bench press position. It's that contracted back, your lats tight, and then you're having a big shelf. You're almost actively sticking out your chest, and then you can really get your chest into the push. Or if you're like this, you can't really get your chest into the movement. You can't really activate it. So then, afterwards we did 3 sets of landmine overhead press. Landmine's a great simple bit of kit. So you can literally just buy a little landmine attachment, and all it does is it like just sits in like an Olympic weight plate. So you could either stack up some regular Olympic weight plates, or if you have like some bumper plates like I do, they're quite thick, so just one will do. You stick the landmine attachment, and it enables you to put a barbell into the landmine, and then you can get different attachments and stuff. Or you could just use the bar as well. Like theoretically, you could just do it with the barbell and push it overhead,
it's still a weight, isn't
or
it?
do like one-handed ones, because obviously it's quite like nice and handy. Like the end of the barbell is sort of like a handle. But I've got this attachment that basically turns it into like a overhead pressing sort of machine. And just loaded up some weight on that. I did 3 sets of overhead, like neutral grip, overhead landmine press.
So at this point, I had a bit of trepidation with that one because it's like I hadn't done those before.
And you got a bit of a shoulder issue, haven't you?
Yeah, bit of a weak left shoulder. So but that was like, it was really fun, awesome, loving the way that the workout's going. And then towards the end of the workout, this is where hell was unleashed.
So we did like basically a lot of strength and hypertrophy work in the upper body, sort of hitting it from every angle.
Felt good though. Felt like it was like, almost overhead. Going to failure, but like, I can handle this. Not pushing too out of breath.
Good solid work. Good solid work.
And what was that bag you got out, man?
Sandbag, 30 kilogram sandbag.
30 kilogram sandbag.
And then we did like some like
I don't ever want to see that again. I will see it again, but like it was a beautiful day though yesterday, wasn't it? And you got a really long. Callum's got a really long garden that's
slightly downhill.
That's like got a Canberra to it, and
Canberra, coated in Canberra,
and we literally took it in turns to whack the bag over our shoulder, run down to the bottom of the garden, slam the bag. Pick it up again over the other shoulder and then run up the garden and just kind of relay with each other.
Yeah, so you and Nikki basically took in turns like 3 sets each, as fast as you can, literally I go, you go style. So 30 kilogram sandbag. So you start off in between your legs. You sort of essentially almost like do like a squat over it. Like grab the bag by the handles and you clean it onto your shoulder, and then in a fireman's carry position, run to the bottom of the garden. Slam the bag, and then hoist it onto the other shoulder, so whichever shoulder you didn't carry it down with, just for symmetrical purposes. Obviously, you don't want to get like weird asymmetry issues, because obviously when you're carrying the sandbag on that shoulder, the opposite side of like your core and everything is having to work to stabilize that weight. But both sides of the core are having to work, but in slightly different ways. So this core is almost like this core. Imagine if it almost wants to do this action. It's almost like it wants to pull you, because otherwise you would want to fall down like this. Things like that. So it's
good
important
to keep balance in like natural movements and stuff as well, isn't it?
Work things. Don't develop asymmetry issues. Make sure that everything's symmetrical. If you do something with your left, make sure you do it with your right, etc. So put it on the opposite shoulder, run up. Real nice, simple movement, but it's great overall strength and conditioning. Great for fitness. Gets your heart rate really going. Gets your lungs burning. But it's great for overall strength, and it's a word that's chucked around too much in the fitness industry. So I say this word with a certain level of hesitation, but it's great functional. It's very functional. And the reason I say it with a bit of hesitation, it's become almost a bit of a trendy word in fitness circles. The last like sort of 5 years, you hear everything. This is I do functional training. I do functional fitness. It's almost become a bit douchey. Do you know what I mean? When something becomes like a hot topic and it's like, everything's functional. Like. But it is. Like certain things actually obviously are functional. So like what's more functional than picking up something that's heavy, putting it over your bag
and running off with it.
Yeah, like that's super beneficial, because every now and again you're going to go to B&Q and your missus is going to say, "Babe, can you pick me up 3 bags of compost and put it in the back in the boot of the car?" And if you can't do that, you're going to feel like you're like a bad partner.
Non-functional.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not functional enough for this task. And then you're going to feel super like like you're not virile, and then you're going to like and that's going to affect your confidence, and then can't get out that night. You know what I mean? But
that was next level for me though, man. Like realizing, because I remember I went through a stage where I was doing a lot of jogging, like by the flat. We'd go on these like massive runs up the canal and everything. I only did it for a couple of months, but I remember like doing it with my partner Meg, and she found it a lot harder than I did. I remember. Like, like she would get really, really, really out of breath in that. Really? And it was like almost I got used to it so that I could just almost keep going, and my heart would be going and stuff like that. But like I didn't find it too hard. Like, and I'd run back as well. But so it's that and weightlifting. Like I find it really enjoyable to be in the gym doing that, but you don't really get out of breath too much and stuff. But
you hit muscular failure before you hit cardiovascular failure.
I would say there'd be like the cardio side, which is like the jogging, and then the weight side, which is just like pure weights and muscle and stuff. But then what we were doing there with that bag thing, like that was like a new level to me. It was a new type of training that I've never really done. Conditioning. And it's like like mixing these cardio but with these massive weight things as well, and that literally like sent me to another planet.
I
saw stars. I thought I was going to be sick, and then we went in and we did jumping squats as well. So 5 sets of 10 jumping squats, and I've got quite weak legs, so like that was like, and by the end of those 2 things, I found that like 10 times harder than the whole rest of the workout that we just done, you know?
Yeah.
And it was just like madness. Like walk around the garden, take massive deep breaths. I went into a bit of state of fear and thought I was just going to puke everywhere and that.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, like it's crazy how that it can do that to your body, you know? And I know that's going to be my most challenging thing to step into, but...
I think it's really good to mix mix different things up. And what you always want to start with more you're more like your purer strength and hypertrophy work first. Like hit it while you're strongest. You know, like you don't want to be limited by like a strength exercise because of your cardio. You want to make sure that you're failing because of muscular failure. That's what's going to make you get stronger and get your muscles bigger, etc., etc., etc. But then once you've done that, then you can start mixing in strength and like more conditioning aspects. And then you can mix it in as well. So it's not just going for a jog. Or just pure, like I said, get that strength and conditioning exercise. So do less running, but you're running with a heavy weight on your shoulders.
Yeah.
You know? And as I said, and that is really, really beneficial. And as I said, because there are times in life where we do just have to lift stuff up. You know, even if, on a little level, if you get used to doing things like that, then like just carrying a load of bags in, like from the supermarket. That's
carrying
like
your child around on a massive walk.
Yeah.
My dad recently, we've just started we've got rid of all the decking in our back garden,
nice.
right? So we've got rid of all the decking and we're putting down tiles.
Doing some labouring.
Exactly, and my dad's doing it all himself. So the other day he got all this like rubble and stuff and dumped it in the front garden and I had to move it out to the back.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about, man.
But we
all have to do these things every now and
He
again.
started doing it and then did his back in like straight away. Gave me a call. So I ended up doing the entire thing, moving all the rubble from the front garden to the back. And that just, once again, it just shows how it is something that you will use in your life.
Yeah.
Just carrying it in a bucket. And, you know, it was pretty savage, but by the end of it, you know, I'm chucking it up, lifting it, you know, just trying to get the full workout that I can from it. And, it felt really good afterwards. I felt like I'd earned, like halfway through, when I got me a nice Lucozade Sport, a sausage roll, and I thought, you know what? I've earned this.
Yeah, bro.
And that was nice.
Yeah, man. And I think it's what I know this might sound almost like a funny way to describe it. What I almost get excited about, I get quite excited about the thought that there's like no position I could be put in that I would find too struggling.
Yeah.
In terms of like physically. Do you know when if somebody's like, oh, Cam, give me a hand with this. I like the idea that whatever it was, I could just be like, yeah, and then it'd be like, yeah, there you go.
I never want someone to hand me a jar of anything and I don't want to be able to open it.
Yeah, exactly. That's another thing, man.
Have you done your hangs?
I got 1 minute and 6 seconds.
Oh, nice.
Which I'm not so proud of.
Mate, I think anything over a minute is good. I think anything over
I forgot to time mine, but I did do it.
Yeah.
But I felt like I was there for quite a long time. But I've got no clue how long it was.
Yeah.
What did Nicky C get? You got like 1 minute
46 or something like that?
Yeah.
I can't remember if it was 46.
And yours was like 30, wasn't it?
33, something like that. I think 1 minute 33, something like that. Yeah. Nicky C is like so like perfectly built for something like that. Because he's only 70 kilos, whereas I'm like over 105 kilos. I think I'm about like 107, 108 kilos. So he's only 70 kilos, but he's really strong for his weight. So he's super light, but then very strong for his weight. So it's like perfect, mate, you know? Perfect. So yeah, really, really impressive. But yeah, so it's doing those sandbag carries and then going straight into those jump squats as well. As I said, just I go, you go. 5 sets of 10. And it's one of those things, the first couple of sets, not too challenging. By the third one, your legs start cramping. And you really start feeling it in your quads, don't you? And what you find
I get
is
disco wobble leg.
But you're really training yourself to be
leg.
Yeah, you're really. We did the disco wobble dance, didn't we, the other week? Yeah, afterwards. Yeah, that was quite funny, wasn't it? Yeah. Maybe we'll release a little video of us doing the disco wobble dance, just like a 10-second clip on our YouTube or something, just for people to see it. Yeah. You know, maybe just some funky disco music. But so people know what we're on about. But yeah, it's one of those things like you're teaching yourself to be super explosive with a jump squat, but you only have so much explosivity like in your body, or explosiveness. Is that better? So it's really interesting, isn't it? By the time you get to your last couple of sets, it's like that. You're trying to give as much oomph into every jump as possible, but your like toes like barely leaving the ground. Whereas at first, you're maybe like clearing the ground with like a foot, something like that. Maybe even more if you're a really good jumper. By those last couple of reps, those last couple of sets, man, you're just like hoping that your feet are like leaving the ground by a couple of inches, aren't you? It's like, but yeah, I tell you what, great overall exercise in terms of like obviously it's going to build strong legs. As I said, you're teaching yourself to be super explosive, because if you're making sure you're jumping with your jump squats, you're jumping off the floor as high as you possibly can, then you're literally generating as much force with your legs as you possibly can. As I was saying to you and Nikki C, it's almost like you're generating as much force as you would do on like a ridiculously heavy barbell squat. But rather than lifting that, but because it's maximum velocity, but you're just launching yourself into space, and then just nice and controlled on the way down, like almost like a spring, and then doing, and then almost like just teaching yourself to do that. But yeah, by the time you get to the end, because it's super taxing, isn't it? You just do feel tired. Very similar as like the sandbag stuff. It's just like your heart's pumping. So
that sounds pretty brutal.
Yeah, man. And we did it a couple of weeks ago for the first time, and I'd never done it before. And the DOMs I had in my legs, I think I'd done a squat or two as well. So that would have made it a little bit worse. But yeah, I'd just never had a little bit of a play aches in my legs like that before.
Yeah, you had bad DOMs for about 5 days. Didn't you?
But it's like after those 5 days, the 2 workouts I've done it since, exactly the same number in that, got it a little bit, but nowhere near. It was almost like I broke through something with those DOMs, and then it's like, okay, my body's like, you're gonna be all right now.
One of the beautiful things about the human body is adaptability.
Yeah,
isn't it amazing? Isn't it amazing how, regardless of how hard something seems at first, if you just make your body do something, it will just find a way to get good at it and adapt to it. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, and that like strain that you put on your body, that it's like getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, like that is actually benefiting you so much, even though your body is screaming no at the time.
It's really, and obviously this is almost like it's like, obviously what I've said like several times, like one of the most important thing about training is like progressive overload. Like if you actually do want to progress, is progressive overload. The idea that it's like a certain amount of stimulus is going to cause you really bad fatigue, and then you'll do that a couple of weeks. It's not causing you fatigue anymore. So what do you have to do? Obviously, you want to increase the stimulus. So that could be more reps. It could be more reps per set. It could be more sets. Could be both. Could be higher intensity. Heavier weight. Whatever. There's more than one way to skin a cat in terms of like, increasing that stimulus. But regardless of what you choose to do, the idea is that you make it harder again, and then you feel almost like you did, or similar to how you did that first time you ever did it, but then you're just progressing, and that is progression. And then you're going to adapt to that, and that suddenly isn't going to feel challenging to you anymore. You're not going to get any DOMs from that. DOMs just stands for delayed onset muscle soreness, by the way, for anybody that doesn't know. Basically just that soreness you feel in your muscles like the day or two after you work out, or in Drew's case 5 days after those. But yeah, and you adapt, and then you just need to increase the stimulus again. And then before you know it, you're one of those people that, if you say a friend of yours that doesn't work out comes train with you, they're like, but yeah, man, I don't know how you do that. And it's like, you don't really think of it because it's been such a gradual progression. But it's like, well, I guess I've just been doing it for a long time. And obviously, once something becomes easy to you, you naturally just
create a habit,
do whatever it takes to make it beneficial. Because if you can feel that something's super easy, it's almost not worth your time. So you're not just going to stay at that forever. You're naturally going to start picking up heavier dumbbells, start picking up heavier whatever it may be, or increasing the sets or increasing the reps. But it's such a gradual thing.
Yeah, it's going to be a good accountability thing for me with the podcast as well, because it's going to document if I'm staying at it or not. Because it's been about a month now.
You've been doing really well, man.
Yeah, like for a month.
Really well.
I do want to keep at it, because the intention for me is that I do find like discipline like hard. Like I think everyone does to a certain extent, but I've told myself this story that I find discipline really hard.
Planted the seed.
So yeah, it's like I want to use it to, if I can stick at training for a long enough period that I actually see results in my body, and that whether that's going to affect other areas of my life, because like if
I think it will in some ways,
and actually develop some of the discipline that I'm from actually making sure that I work out and putting that into other areas. Bringing the physical into more.
I think one thing that I hypothesize about myself is I think from working out like pretty much all my life, I think I've conditioned myself to work very hard for short periods of time, but I find that working, I'm talking about just like any type of work, at sort of like a low level for an extremely long period of time, I find that very tedious and boring and almost...
Because all your workouts are more explosive, and in one thing you work very hard for like a... And then it's kind of like...
So I would much rather work for 3 hours and work like a madman than work for 8 hours. But I mean, and the thing is, as I said, this isn't a tool about like a criticism or anything, because at the end of the day, it's whatever works for you. But there's certain people I see from their work, and I think, yeah, do you know what I mean? They're technically, say, like at work for like a long time. But I can tell that probably about half of that day, it's more like chatting with other people about and having a bit of a laugh, and there's nothing wrong with that. As long as at the end of the day, as long as I guess you're doing your workload and you're doing it, then that's all that can be asked of you, isn't it? That's jobs are good. But I wouldn't want to do that. I'd want to do my work, do it really, really hard, almost like get your head down, freaking do it, cane it, and then you relax, or then you move on to whatever else you got to do that day. I don't want to sort of work for a really long time.
I've never really looked at it like that. That's interesting, man.
And that's why I think it's really fun. Like if somebody says to me, whether if it is like says to me like, "Oh, Callum, can you help me with something?" and it's like physical, I almost get excited about it because I know it's going to be.
I was made for this.
I know it's going to be like really short, intense, like physical work,
and then we're going to have a real nice dinner after.
That to me, it's not like. But if somebody said to me like, "Oh, Callum, do you want to do like 8 hours of I don't know, like painting?"
I had painting in my head
on Saturday. I'd probably be like, I don't know, it's quite a long time just to be sort of going like this with a brush, man. Do you know what I mean? But if you say like to me, like, could you help me move house? I'm like, hell yeah. I'll get that sofa up and down those stairs and in the van, and then I'll help you deliver it to your new place. And we're going to get this done. And I guarantee you that, like we're going to get it done quick, and it's going to be fun. And we're
I'm going to have to
we're going to get a sweat on. We're going to get a sweat on, but it's going to be fun.
For the caravan.
And there's nothing that's going to be too much to ask, and yeah. Yeah, sure, man.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, but stuff like that, So I think that's one area that's affected me, because obviously, because you're just saying like you're interested to see how it changes your.
I do think it's very important for us in a job like this to actually go working out and stuff, because it's not a very physical job, is it?
No.
Probably about as unphysical as you could get. We kind of just sit around and do all our work on computers.
That's been my life since about 22, really, with work, because I was at Hinckley and that I was at a desk all the time,
But even before that, like even say we were in school, and that obviously because you're as like a side effect of your love of music in a lot of your free time,
sitting down playing guitar, baby.
Yeah, sitting around playing guitar, or
at the computer doing
teaching
production.
yourself music production. Which is basically sitting down, learning how to work music programs, learning how to use all of these different.
Yeah, so you can you lose touch with your body a bit in the physical aspects and ways,
Because it's easy, especially if you are super creative like yourself. You can start making music on a Saturday morning, start playing around with it, recording it on Saturday midday, and then you're still working on it midnight.
Oh yeah,
and then you're forcing yourself to go to sleep. But really, it's like you
just want to keep going.
In terms of your mind. It's amazing and it's beautiful and it's creative and you're being super productive. But in terms of your body, it's actually not very good for you, because you think about it, what you're doing physically is you've been sat down all day. Man, those hamstrings are getting tight and stiff, and those hips are getting real stiff.
Oh yeah.
Like you're not.
Yeah, it's crazy to even think about it, because you're almost fueled by this inspiration that's just like flowing through you. It, like,
you're living in the mental
superpower.
That's
like you're not even thinking about your body. You're like, it's so weird when I've got in the zone with like producing some songs sometimes and that. Like I've not eaten for like 12 hours or something, and I've not even wanted to. My body has just been like, oh, you're concentrating on this, okay. And
they get some weird point. You're like, actually, wait a minute, I'm actually really hungry. When was the last time I ate? Oh, I didn't eat yesterday. Yeah, that's weird. It's like, you get into this. But I think it's almost as I was going to say. It's like you're living like usually, obviously, our lives are both in like a mental and physical plane, and they should be sort of intertwined. But when you get into those sort of places, like when you're like writing music and then recording music, and you're living in this world with your headphones on, where you're staring at the screen and then playing guitar and then looking back at the screen and then clicking buttons, you're living 100% in the mental plane. The physical plane suddenly is being completely ignored. But obviously, chronically, if you do that chronically, that could lead to issues down the road. And
Rick Rubin.
Yeah, or like just the stiffness you have in your hamstrings. You got really stiff hamstrings, don't you, man? Like you literally. Specifically, and 100%, that is because of that. 100%. You've got these super stiff hamstrings. I use the analogy, don't I? And it literally is. It is the perfect analogy. So like your hamstrings are technically bicep muscles. Obviously, we think of our biceps as like on your arms, but because of the fact that we've essentially invented chairs. Like chairs don't exist in nature. Our default position is just standing,
right? And squat. That like a lot of people would like squat.
Our default position is standing up.
Yeah, but I mean, like instead of sitting down,
you would squat.
When people would sit down, they would go in that squat position, which is actually really good for opening up your hips and stuff.
Yeah, so especially when human beings would go to the toilet, or if you like leant down to like pick something up or something, we would probably much more like to squat. And you see that young children naturally do it before they become indoctrinated in the modern ways of doing things. But so you'd be standing or you'd be lying down, and I'm sure, like obviously, like it would make sense that our ancestors sometimes might lean on a rock or something if it was like the right height for your butt. You know what I mean? But on the whole, your default position is standing up. But we've almost like made our default position sitting down at a right angle with our legs at a right angle. But and go back to what I was saying about the analogy about your arms. Yeah, what I was saying about the analogy about your arms and your arms being a bicep. Your hamstrings being a bicep muscle, like the biceps on your arms. Like if you think about it. If you had your arms like this all the time, if you had your arms at like a 90-degree angle, say for everyone listening on the radio, I'm going to have to describe it. If you had your arms at a 90-degree angle at the time, and you literally just walked around like this, you weren't even tensing him. You just walked around like this, or walked around like this. All right. After a while, when you went like that, you'd be like, you would have this really weird stretch and stiffness in your arm just from the fact that basically what you're doing. So when you're doing this, you're shortening your muscle, and when you're doing this, you're lengthening your muscle. But if you just never ever lengthen it, then when you do it, it's going to feel stiff. It's going to feel stiff. It's going to feel stiff because it's unconditioned now to be in its length.
Even now, if I stretch my leg out straight from sitting down like this, like it feels weird and stretched on my hamstrings just from on my chest.
So if you think about that analogy with the arm, it's no different than with your legs, but we've done that to our legs. Our legs are all the time now at a right angle, as I said, as if you were doing like this with your arms, and then you stretch your legs out. Most people can't touch their toes, and that's why.
I certainly cannot.
That's crazy.
And the only reason I can, and obviously I didn't even realise that it was having a positive effect until I was probably in my late 20s, but it's because I have not really, apart from like the odd injury or the odd maybe some weird little reason here and there, I haven't really stopped working out since I was in school.
And does that include stretching your hamstrings? Like you would do that?
Of course, because weight training is just stretching under load. If you think about it, like all weight training is stretching under load.
Oh, so you didn't specifically do like
hamstring stretches? No, it's just
wow.
If you're squatting ass to grass on a regular basis and you're deadlifting,
you're stretching those muscles out,
and you're doing Romanian deadlifts and stiff-legged deadlifts and regular deadlifts and all this stuff, your muscles aren't going to get stiff because they're always being stretched. They're always being stretched, and they're actually being stretched under load. So being stretched under weight, that's what I mean. So it's like, take your chest as a really good example. It's like, how much do I need to stretch my chest? Every single time I do like a dip or I do a dumbbell press, I'm taking my arm for a full range of motion from extension all the way down to a stretch. But I'm not just stretching it. I'm stretching it with a really heavy dumbbell. So I'm stretching it under load. That's exactly what I mean when I say stretching under load. If I've got like a barbell on your back or something and you're squatting down, think about the amount of stretch reflex you're putting on your leg muscles and on your glutes with a heavy barbell on your back. Jeez, stretching under load. Jeez Louise. So as a side effect, people actually that do lots and lots of weight training, especially people that have like a smart program. What I mean by that is like a very well-rounded program where you're making sure you're hitting your body from all
Think I'll be stretching.
Yeah, you will. Yeah, you will. Yeah. Whereas it's funny, isn't it? Because I think people think the opposite. Because there used to be this thing that like if you weightlift, you're like muscle bound and you're being stiff. You might be like that if you're like one of those like ridiculously massive like fat powerlifters, but that's probably more because you're fat, not because of the weights you lift. It's just because you've decided to become such a specialist in strength that you're negating all the other positive benefits of working out. But that's one of the reasons, as I said, like why with the training that I always do and what I promote, I would say it's like strength and conditioning. I always like say that, and if somebody asks me what type of PT I am, I say I'm a strength and conditioning coach. That's what it is. Like the training you do with me, it's not just bodybuilding. I think it's like it's training like an athlete. Part of being an athlete is being big and strong. So yeah, we do the strength work, we do the hypertrophy work, but we also make sure, I always say to you, don't I, hit body from every angle, and that means like transverse plane as well. So like not just like linear stuff, side to side stuff, including things like side to side work, and and training whether it's like explosive cardiovascularly taxing movements like jump squats, or things like fireman's carries. Doing like putting a big sandbag on your back and like running around.
I can't wait to like flip that tire as well at some point.
Oh yeah, we can do that next week if you want.
Flip the tire.
Yeah.
If the weather's nice, we'll
massive
do that.
Can I come for the workout next week?
Yeah.
I'd like to do that.
Yeah, I've got 2 tires. I've got a 100 kilo tire and a 60 kilo tire. Maybe you can start on the 60 kilo one, and I'll use the 100 kilo one next week.
Nice, man.
Obviously, because it's really funny actually. Like our friend Alice, Alice is also the person that does all the social media for Aspen Radio. But Alice was trying so hard just to like flip the 100 kilo tire once, and she obviously just couldn't budge it from the ground. And obviously we were having like bands. I was like laughing, but like, obviously like in a nice way. I wasn't like laughing at her. We were like we're laughing together. We're mates, and we are banterous mates as well. So we're always ragging on each other. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, she was trying so hard, bless her. Like and she was like, and afterwards like she even messaged me. I think it might have even been yesterday, and she was like, "I am going to flip that 100 kilo tire." So yeah, come on. Yeah,
good goals I have.
Yeah, show me. But yeah, we can do that next week as long as it's nice weather on Wednesday. Yeah, because
let's hope the weather is fair for us.
Yeah, because Drew's been coming and working out with me every Wednesday. So yeah, man, let's get the tires out and we'll flip them up and down the garden. It's real fun.
Oh,
I say another thing that we can do as well at some stage, and I tell you what, this is like next level tires you out. No. Well, we can do the sled pull. I love doing sled drags, but and a really tiring thing, and it's one of those things. It's like it might sound tiring, but trust me, when you actually do it, it's ridiculously tiring. Is you essentially mix tire flips with box jumps. So you flip the tire, and then you jump onto the tire, and then jump down again.
Nice.
And then jump back again, and then flip it, and then jump onto. Trust me, man. By the time you've done a couple of sets of them up and down the garden, you are just like caned.
You are going to be destroyed.
Or you could make it even more advanced than that, and then you can do a jump into the tire, and then another jump out of the tire, and then turn around, flip the tire. Jump into the tire, jump out of the tire, turn around, flip it. If you do 10 of them, just one set, set of 10 of them. Whoa, do you know what I mean? It's
then we'll do a tug of war. It'll be me and Bullwinkle against you as a tug of war.
Yeah, let's do that. That'd be real fun. Yeah. Let's do that. That'd be really funny, man. Yeah, regardless of the outcome, that'd be real fun. I say, I mean, it's really hard to say who would win that. I mean, because obviously you guys are like it's like 2 against 1, and obviously that is like a big, like obviously a huge advantage. But I tell you what, whether you guys win or lose, you guys are gonna have to work for it. I can tell you that. You guys are gonna have to work for it. I'm gonna dig my heels in.
Yeah, we'll video it so people can see on the pod.
We'll put it on the Pandoras Box channel. Jesus Christ, man, that's gonna be so funny.
That's gonna be hilarious.
That is gonna be hilarious. Yeah, so I have to make sure you guys work for that victory if you guys get me.
And when I'm in the shape that I want to be in as well,
I'm
going to get my top off in the pod and I'm going to be like, ugh.
There we go.
Just every episode.
Yeah,
man, that should be the goal. We should set a topless Pandora's Box episode, a shirtless episode, and regardless of how we look, we just got to do it. And then that'll be
6 months from now.
See what we
can do in
by
6
then
months.
we got to make sure.
Yeah, it's funny. I think when we do the tug of war, I think to make it fair, we might have to do it twice, only because the way that my garden is, obviously it's like slightly downhill.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have.
Well, I think you should have the advantage if it's like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll go downhill.
Yeah, you go downhill. I don't know. Unless you think it'd be like super easy. Because that'd be like 2 against 1 plus.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Well, okay. Well, I'll go downhill to start,
and then see how easy it is. And if it's real
on
easy,
the off chance I beat you, I'll be surprised if I do beat you. 'Cause at the end of the day, like, let's face it, I'm a lot stronger than either one of you individually.
Yeah.
But as I said, 2 against 1 is a big advantage. But on the off chance I do beat you guys, then we'll try it uphill as well and see how much of a difference that makes.
Sounds like a plan.
Because then obviously you've almost got gravity on your side, haven't you, if you're the one that's a bit more downhill?
I'm going to start watching Tug of War. Yeah. Just because I bet there's a technique to it. I'm
hoping you come in with like a Squid Game like technique. Where you got to lean back.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately what it's going to be, it's going to be grip and pulling power. Ultimately,
my grip's not too good.
I'm sure there is some sort of like little
my pulling power
tips.
Is pretty good.
He can pull off a donkey from 20 yards.
Pull the pig, baby.
Pull the pig.
Game I know well. Just joking.
Yeah. I was going to say that could be taken very badly. Yeah, have you seen his message? No, I'd say that's what I was saying. It can be taken badly. Whereas obviously Meghan is obviously a lovely-looking lady. Sorry, everyone. We've
gone into debauchery right now.
We can't, what can we do, eh? We're still just a group of monkeys at the end of the day. 3 monkeys. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's going to be the things that stick out to me straight, like instantly. It's like, okay, what is it going to be? Obviously, it's grip power, because you need to make sure you grip that rope really hard. It's pulling power, so it's because
you're not allowed to like wrap the rope round you, are you? You just got to hold the rope. You can't like wrap it round your hand.
I don't know.
I think you can.
I think you can.
I think so. I think the person at the back's meant to like anchor themselves. So people tend to like put it behind their back and then like almost wrap it around their arms.
Because I'd find that so much easier if it's wrapped around my arm and I was gripping it. That would be easier than if I just had to grip the rope. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe we should try it both ways.
Yeah.
We'll look up the rules.
Yeah. Official.
It'll be a legal game.
Official tug of war. We'll get Em to wear a little referee outfit, and she can be like the. We'll give her a little whistle.
I remember seeing my dad like do it like tug of warring, like in his rugby team, years and years ago, and apparently they used to do it in the Navy a lot as well. Okay. Like as like proper up on the deck, like doing massive tug of war competitions and stuff.
Nice.
Cool,
man. Yeah, I say that'll be a lot of fun. That will be a lot of fun. Yeah, I'll see. So pulling power, grip power, and also it will be a certain degree of leg power as well. So obviously you're going to have to dig your legs in, and you will be able to use your legs almost like to. And obviously your legs are going to be like fairly extended anyway, but you can almost like generate leg pressing power into the ground to create force along with the pull. Obviously, that'd be real fun. Anyway, come to the end of another Pandora's Box, everyone. Thanks for chilling with us this evening. We've talked about the occult, demons, Aleister Crowley, parallel dimensions.
AI.
A little bit, a bit about AI, a little bit about ethics and morals and enablism, and then finished off with a little update on Drew's recent training pursuits, the workout that we did last night, and the importance of, strength and conditioning, how it benefits your life, functional training, all of that malarkey, and then finished it off with a nice little revelation that we're going to have a little tug-of-war battle next week. So we'll update you on that, guys. Have a great week, everyone. Lots of love.
Ta-ra.
Peace.